something else I do when I'm looking at stuff and just backtesting in general, I look for losers. It's so easy to focus on winners. And in a way, for some of us that aren't experienced, especially your first time through, you're probably going to look for winners because you want to confirm that what you're doing is right. Take my advice. Look for losses. I try to get my loss column as full as possible. Look for losses. Because you won't even know it, but we naturally want to see winners. Right? We naturally want to see things that confirm what we believe in. So I like seeing stuff like that where it's like, yeah, this would have been loser. Or easily you could have been like, well, Keel, I wouldn't have taken this trade because, right? This would have been a loser. Again, unless you had if you had a stop loss that was, more structure based, probably would have been below these lows, so you'd still be in the trade. But if you're doing that super aggressive way, this would have been a loser. And then you take notes on it, right? Because again, looking at this case and looking at, I forgot what we just looked at, but the other case where we said, what was it? I forgot what pair it is, but we just did two comparisons of, hey, if you had that aggressive stop loss, you're out. If you had that stop loss based on kind of how you normally would structure, again, let's say you took an ATR stop below these lows, you would have been safe. These are notes that you should be taking down, right? How many times would you have been safe if you took a normal stop loss versus a aggressive one with an inside bar stop loss? And you'll start to see a pattern where you're like, man, most of these aggressive ones are being stopped out while most of these non-aggressive ones are safe. Or you can be like, it's 50-50. So if it's 50-50, obviously I'll take less of a loss than a bigger loss. And you kind of see what makes more sense. Or at least worst case scenario, when you start your process, your testing process, now you have a clear idea of what you want to test, right? When you did and this is part of that pre-test and the eye test I always talk about, this is part of that where you're like, okay, well, I want to pay attention to this during testing because I have some questions about this. So write down to yourself, dear John, right? When testing, make sure I look at the difference between stop loss A and stop loss B, right? So now you're addressing those questions during the back testing process, but you have an idea of what you want to test. And that eye test is so important. It's something that I didn't do. I didn't do it when I first started testing. And guess what would happen? I would come up with questions during my test. So I would spend like 13 hours testing. And then I'd be like, I wonder if I used a 1.5 ATR, how would that make a difference? So I had to not erase everything, but go all the way back to the beginning and then test it with 1.5 ATR. And I'd be like, what if I tested the 50% retracement versus the 382? Would that make it easy? And I go all the way back and I'm like, I should test the 7. Like, it was stupid. I tested every single thing individually instead of, partially because I was in a rush, right? I think that was the biggest thing, right? I didn't look at back testing is an experience, right? Back testing is an experience. It is a scientific experience where you're venturing off into this magical portal and you're answering the questions of the world, right? It's a journey. I didn't look at it as a journey that I wanted to enjoy, right? And I guess here's an example, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with Denise Scholl. She's someone I really like, and she's a trading psychologist, and she just did a road trip. And a road trip is something I always wanted to do. I don't want to drive. I want to do one on a train, right? A train road trip. One of my biggest flaws in life is I don't take time to enjoy the present. I'm very future driven. By the time the present is here, it's too late to worry about. So it's pointless. So I look at the future. So I don't do stuff like, I don't really get happy. I don't celebrate like stuff like, even when my kids are born, people are like, oh, did you cry? I'm like, no, like they were supposed to be born. By the time they were born, the moment already happened. Why should I celebrate it? Let's focus on the next, right? I don't want to say it's a character flaw. It makes me very good in trading because it keeps me focused on predicting. But you don't always enjoy the things in life. So a lot of the times I'm always worried about the destination. So if I'm taking like a train trip to California, it's like, hey, let's just get to California so we can do what we need to do. Where in reality, we should be enjoying it. It was like, hey, let's stop in this place and get some food, or let's go see this and let's take some time to see that. You don't have to be in such of a rush. In backtesting, I was in such of a rush, right? Because for me, I didn't look at backtesting as being a journey that I should enjoy. air quotes for enjoy, that I should experience. I looked at it as a means to an end. The only thing I saw in my head was my mentor said, I have to back test to prove that my strategy works. And I can't trade it live until I prove that my strategy works. So I was only back testing to get the A-OK that my strategy works so I could start trading. It was basically something I just had. It was a hoop I had to jump through in order to trade live. So I only went through looking for the answer. So I was like, okay, these are the default rules. I'm only testing this. And then as I did it, that's when I started to notice, like, hey, there are all these different things that I should probably, all these questions I had. And, you know, later on in my career, after doing it over and over again, which the positive, by the way, was my RAS became spectacular. Right. You can imagine doing back testing on the same thing like 10 different times. My eyes got good real quick. That was the benefit of it, I suppose. But later on in my career, I started doing the eye test. So I would spend time like what I'm doing here now for weeks and weeks and months, looking at stuff and generating ideas and taking notes. And then that way, when I back test it, I can kind of answer all of those questions at once. And you're still going to get questions that arise. Don't get me wrong. There's still going to be stuff that pops up in your head and you're like, huh. But you don't have to go through it 10 times, right? You can kind of come to a conclusion about what you want to look at, and you can kind of just do it all at once. And I think that's massive in saving time and just allowing you to focus on what's important. So the destination is part of the journey. Yep, for me, there was no journey. It was just the destination. I just want to get there. I don't want to experience. Let me get a teleportation portal. Let me step into it and let me get there. I don't want to enjoy the stuff that's on the way. That's my mindset. That's me my entire life. I'm so future driven. I'm not very present. Which again has its pros and it has its cons. It's helped me in business. Maybe not so much in life.